Tia Perkins from Perkins Life 4, and I'm talking to you today about myself, how I got where I am. When I was born in a house in Brooklyn, New York, and by the time I was 3, my mom was on drugs and she was an alcoholic. And she kept custody of us, raised us, and she beat on us a lot. And then one weekend we went to our father's house, and we were supposed to come back on Sunday. And when we came back, no answer. So we went back to my father's house, and we stayed there for a year. I didn't know whether my mother was dead or alive for a while. And then one day my father came to us and said that my mom wants us to come home. And that abandonment affected my life big time. I was scared all the time, angry, heartbroken, and she never explained why she left or anything. So we went to live back with my mom. And then one summer, we had to stay with my father. I thought it was happening all over again. But my father came up to us and told us that my mom was in rehab. And they wanted family counseling too. So we went to family counseling, and my mom did her own personal counseling, and once that was over, we reunited with our mom again. And she took us to McDonald's one day and said sorry. That was her exact words, sorry. And we never spoke about it again. That wasn't enough, but that's what she could give. So I accepted it. And from then on, I pretty much grew up normal. I was 11 when she got sober, and from then on I grew up pretty much average teenager. I didn't do good in school. I hated school, actually. We went to schools in the ghetto, and the teachers weren't very knowledgeable about anything. They didn't know how to teach well, and the classrooms were always a mess, and the students always acted out, and for some reason the boys liked hurting me. They either liked hurting me or touching me in places that they shouldn't. So I didn't like school much. And when I had to repeat my senior year, because I never went to senior year. I stayed home and slept. And I had to repeat the senior year, but I told my mom that I wanted to repeat it at night school because I didn't like day school. it was too clicky for me. I didn't like the cliques. And I didn't like the teachers much either. So, and my brother and my sister, we all grew up together. My sister was very mean growing up. She would do things just to piss you off. You know, my brother says that hasn't changed. I don't talk to her, so I don't know. But she would do things just to piss you off. My brother and I were very close. We took a lot of time to get to know each other and to spend time with each other and to be each other's champion when no one else would. My brother and I are still close. Not as close as I would like us to be, but we're still close. So I finished high school. I couldn't find a job in New York City because I looked too young. And nobody wanted to hire somebody that looked like they was 14. But I was 18. So at 19 I joined the Air Force. And for my first 2 years in the Air Force was great. I had a great job working at IEU, part of the supply squadron. And my boss, he taught me everything about the business, and it was really good. And I was in a relationship with my daughter's father, Michael, and that wasn't so good. He wasn't nice to me, but I thought that he was the best that I could get. So I stuck around and I let him treat me like crap. And that's all I knew from my own father too, because he was a piece of work. So I got pregnant, and then it all changed in the military when I got pregnant. Everyone was telling me what I should do with my child, and most of it was abortion or adoption, and I didn't want to do either one of those. So I got a lot of enemies off that. I kept my child, and I raised her, and they weren't very nice to me after that, and they kept telling me to leave her at the hospital if she got sick, which everybody knows you don't leave your kid at the hospital or you'll lose custody of them. But I guess they thought I was too young and stupid. I was 21 years old. I wasn't that young. And I was too stupid to know the difference. So, actually, I was 22 years old when they was telling me to do that. So, I kept my daughter, and I raised her, and the military put me through hell. They asked me if I wanted to get dishonorably discharged, and I said, why should I be dishonorably discharged? I do my job, and I show up on time to work and everything. There's no reason to dishonorably discharge me, so I'm not going for a dishonorable discharge. Well, they have a way of making your life a living hell. when you don't do what they suggest you do. So for the next year, I went through hell with the military, them following me, them in my business, showing up at my house, all kinds of stuff like that, a lot of harassment. But I got my honorable discharge going through all of that and not settling for less. So I got medically honorably discharged because they drove me crazy. Not that I was crazy already, but they drove me extra crazy. So I got medically honorably discharged from the military, and I didn't know what I was going to do after I got out the military. It's hard transitioning because you get institutionalized. It's sort of like, I equated to going to prison voluntarily. I mean, what person would do that? But a lot of people do it. I did it. I didn't know what I was gonna do, so I collected unemployment and sat around the house figuring out what I was gonna do. And my mom said I should just come back to New York City. And so I went back to Brooklyn, New York, and my mom was a total bitch to me the whole time. All I did was pay bills, take care of my daughter, and go to work, and that wasn't good enough for her. She didn't want me to go to school because she said if I wanted to go to school, I wouldn't have had a child. So she didn't support me in going to college or anything like that. So she was very mean and degrading, and I don't want to say evil, but it was evil. It was like a jealousy thing that was going on. So I gathered up the money and I left. I went back to Nebraska, where I got a job working at a call center. And while I was working at this call center, I said what I wanted to do was daycare. So I saved up money, and I saved up my money, and mind you, during this time my mom's asking me for help all the time because she can't make it in Brooklyn, New York, and she figures I'm a fool, and I was. And I helped her out a lot. But I also saved a lot of money. And then my daughter's father got disability. And I got a large check in the mail. So I ended up buying a house. And I had my car already. And I started my daycare business. So at the age of 28, I had a house, a business, and a vehicle. My daughter's father was still in my life, even though he was married now. But I felt like I had put so much attention into him that I couldn't leave. And so I stayed around. After a while I got tired of it. You know, I was tired of waiting because he kept saying he was getting a divorce. Yeah, right. Of course he's going to say that. He doesn't want to lose what he's got. But I got tired of that, and I told him, I said that I'm just hanging around until something better comes along. He didn't believe me. My mom came to live with me in Nebraska because she was homeless in New York City. And she still was jealous and angry and abusive, verbally abusive towards me. I took that for 2 years, and then I kicked her out because I told her I'm tired of it, and she said she was tired of living here with me, and I told her to go then. She can go if she's tired of living here with me. And I shut everything that I had that was in my name off, and she was very angry about that. Everything of hers was in my name, so you can imagine everything got shut off. I was very angry and hurt, and I didn't like my house anymore because it had bad memories in it, you know, with my mom. I didn't really like it anymore because it had a lot of bad mojo going on there for me. And so I got a job at Walmart and started working there to get not rent money, but I had the money for rent. But because my mom depleted my savings a lot, I didn't have enough for Christmas stuff for my daughter, so I could get her Christmas. So I started working at Walmart so I could get her Christmas toys and stuff like that, and clothes for Christmas. And there was this guy sitting in the break room one day with these strong arms and these dimples that y'all can't see, but I saw. And he looked so capable. And so I started following him around when my shift was over. His shift was just starting. And I would talk to him, and he would walk right away from me. Sometimes I'd be talking, and I'd be talking to air. He was there just a moment ago, and then he was gone. And I had to run after him. So I ran after him for about 2 weeks. Then I told him, okay, this is enough. Do you want my phone number or what? And he said yes, he would like my phone number. And so I gave him my phone number. And we talked on the phone that morning, the next morning. And we talked for a while. His father kept coming in to wake him up. And he kept saying he was already awake. But we talked on the phone for a while. And then the next night he came and he cooked for me. And that's James, as you guys all know. He came and he cooked for me, and he cooked really well. And he cooked. He came the next night and he cooked for me. And then he never left. He just moved in. And I didn't bother to tell my daughter's father or whatever. I just stopped being with him, and he was confused for a little while. Then he got mad because how dare I find somebody I should pine away from him for the rest of my life. And I didn't. And then 3 months later, I was pregnant with my first child. My first child from James and Tyler. And that was a trip, because I was walking around. He was growing rapidly, not like my daughter, where you could barely see her at 9 months. Tyler was growing big, and so that made my daughter's father mad. And he started telling my daughter that she's not going to be the baby anymore, and we're gonna pay more attention to the baby than her. And my daughter started believing that, and he started saying he'd be a better parent, even though he didn't pay any attention to her at all until this. I mean, he paid no attention to her. I mean, he wouldn't even watch her for an hour for me to go somewhere. That's how bad it was. And we only lived 5 minutes away from each other. And so she believed him because she wanted to. And we moved because the recession was going on, and we moved to South Carolina. Well, that was bad because there was a lot of racism against James and I there. We only lived there for 2 months. Then we moved to Texas, and it was much better there. And we lived in Denison, Texas for a few years. I had Tyler at the same hospital that James was born at. So I was 8 months pregnant when I got to Texas. And we had Tyler. And then my daughter's father, he tried to say that he would take her during the summer. But really what he wanted to do was take her and say to the judge that he had her all along. So I told him he couldn't take her. So he got an attorney, and they tried to tell me that he could take her. The judge said that he could have her for 1 weekend, for 1 year. 1 weekend, 1 year. And I suggested that he take her for a year, because he could spoil her for 1 weekend, but he couldn't keep up the ruse for a whole year, so she could see exactly what her father was like. So he took her for a year, and Risa told me I was right. But then when she came home, she didn't like being where we were at either, because we didn't have the kind of money that her father had. Because he married for money, I married for love. So James didn't have a lot of money, I didn't have a lot of money. But Michael didn't have a lot of money, but his wife had a lot of money. So she got a lot more stuff there than she got with us. Material stuff. She got a lot more love, care, and values with us. she didn't really like that too much. So she stayed with me until she was 17 and a half. And she went back to live with her father. And she's been there ever since. In between that, I had Truck. When Brisa came back from the first visit with her father, I was 5 months pregnant with Truck. And I had Truck at the same hospital his father was born. That was the last baby born in that hospital, was Truck, because they were switching hospitals. And he grew big too. And for the first year, he was okay. But then he got, all these allergies started creeping up. The eczema, the milk was first. His allergy to milk came first. Then the eczema started, and it was really bad. I mean, really bad. As bad as eczema could get. And it was over 95% of his body. I mean, we would wake up and it looked like it was a crime scene on his bed. There was so much blood. I mean, he had a lot of medical problems because of his eczema and his allergies. And then his stomach flipped over. They said his bowels flipped over because he threw up really bad. And apparently that happens to young children. It can happen to young children, that their bowels flip over. And we had to rush him to the hospital. And if they flipped themselves back over, or he would have had to have surgery to flip him back over. But they flipped back over on their own, thank God. But that was to peanuts. And then we got that back test done on him, which was horrible. Okay, that is the most barbaric thing that they can do. I wish they would come up with some new way to test allergies, because that was just barbaric. And we got the back test done on him, and he was allergic to just about everything except for roaches, dogs, mold, and there was one other thing I don't remember now. It was something stupid, but he was allergic to everything, pretty much everything. So we stayed away from family members, which we stayed away from them anyway, because James's family is a mess. His mother, and she's the worst one out of all of them. His mother acts like he did her an injustice by being born with autism. Like he did it to her. And so she treats him like crap because he's not as smart as his brothers. And so we got into arguments about that a lot. And she wouldn't change. So finally we had to say goodbye. And everybody stood up for her. Everybody took her side. So we had to say goodbye to all of them. Because they weren't worth the time. it took to explain why this and why that. You know, they all knew Marilyn longer, and James was the child, and that's how they knew him. They remembered him. So anything she said went, and anything he said was whatever, get over it. You know, and there are things that you can't get over, like, you know, choosing your ex-wife over you is ridiculous. I remember the first day she said we had to leave because Michelle was coming over. I was like, what? Hello? But that's the way it was. And I was like flabbergasted. But that's how they treated him, like he was a stepchild. And she was the child. She was the daughter they never had. So they got her. Happy trails. They lost their son in the process. You know. And they lost seeing their grandchildren grow up. Because they haven't seen Tyler and Truck in 5 years. And they haven't reached out either, so they ain't reaching out, we ain't reaching out. You know, because they just gonna act the same way they acted. And I got tired of living in Sherman and Denison. So we went on a field trip to some of the parks in Texas, and we ended up in Waco, Texas, and they had something called the VASH program. It was a new program that was coming out for veterans. But and we went through it and everything, and we got a place to live because we was homeless, and we got a place to live, and but I didn't like where we were living because I have 2 boys and I didn't want them to grow up to be thugs that were there. And so we packed up our stuff one night and hightailed it out of there and decided to camp the whole way to Tennessee. We knew we was coming to Tennessee. We didn't know where in Tennessee we was going to end up. We just knew we was going to be in Tennessee. We ended up in Cookeville. And it's been great ever since. I love this little town. It's really nice. They have a great homeschool program. And oh, did I forget to tell you guys, I homeschool my daughter. I homeschool my 2 sons. They have a great homeschool program here, and the boys really like it. I really like it. And James and I are doing it on our own, and we're doing great. So that's my life story. And I still talk to my brother. I don't talk to my sister. I haven't talked to my sister since 2003. I haven't talked to my mother since 2010. So I am pretty much the black sheep of the family. And I like it like that. They don't bother me, I don't bother them. And that's about it. There's not much else to my story.